Recording. There we go. Very good. This is the Concord Housing Roundtable of August 30th, 2022, and it's 7:02. And we'll start with for the groups that follow open meeting. This would be the CHDC, the Concord Housing Authority, and the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust to open their meeting. And I'm going to look around to see. I don't know that the CHDC has anyone here besides Lee, so I don't think you have to open. Is that correct? Is that how that works? Right.
Correct.
Yep. Okay, so the CHA, do you want to open your meeting?
Stephanie,
Sure. We can call this meeting to order. I'll take attendance really quickly. Stephanie Kroback here. Ed?
Ed Larner here.
Stefan?
Stefan Bader here.
Rick?
Geithler here.
Charles?
Charles Phillips here.
Very nice. Good showing. Excellent. And the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust?
Hi, Keith Bergman, Chair of the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust, calling meeting to order with a roll call. Linda Escobedo.
Present.
Mike Lawson. Muted. Mike's there.
I'm here.
Very good. I don't see Rich Ely. I think he was going to be away, but Carrie LaFleur is here and Keith Bergman present. So 4 out of 5.
Okay, great. And the Concord Foundation, you don't have to formally open your meeting, but if you just want to, say who's here from the foundation and acknowledge us all, that would be great. You're on mute.
Charles Phillips. I'm on the foundation as well as.
Oh, you are?
Housing
Okay,
Authority.
great.
Maura?
Yes, Charles is here and I'm here, Maura Walsh. Yep.
And is Win is here? Is she on your committee as well?
Yes, Win is here.
Yes, she's here.
Yes, hi Win. Nice to see you. Okay, and then Lee, you're going to acknowledge for the CHDC. Just check in, say hi.
Lee Smith, Chair of Concord Housing Development Corporation. Because we don't have a quorum, it doesn't constitute an actual formal meeting, but I will provide the update on behalf of the board.
Great, thank you very much. So thanks everyone for joining. And we're going to just get started right in the agenda. We're going to take things a little bit out of order, and we're going to take the last item first. We're going to do the planning, not the adjourn item, but that would be interesting, right? But the planning division update. So Elizabeth Hughes, so that she can attend to her other matters. And we'll let her go first, and then from there we'll go into the rest of the agenda, sort of starting with the. Well, I'm sorry. Now that I'm looking at the agenda, we did want to. Take a moment to reflect and honor Terry Ruthermel and all the work that he's done for housing in Concord. So I think many of you have worked with Terry in the past. For a single person and a single contributor, and he worked on many items, and I am a member at First Parish, and Terry was very active in First Parish, and that's how I met him. And then also with housing, and he always stood up at town meeting and offered his thoughts, and in an undaunting kind of way, like he wouldn't be backing down, and he made a lot of things happen. And so just offer if anyone else wanted to say a word or two, and then we'll have a moment.
We're planning to have something about Terry in our next newsletter from the foundation.
Very good. Thank you, Charles.
And, Stefan and I had been talking about the fact that in many ways, Terry was sort of the conscience for housing.
Mhm, mhm.
And if I may, Terry Ruthermel was on the select board when I first started working for the town of Concord, and he was a strong vocal advocate for affordable housing. I know that at the time Concord was less than 2% affordable housing, and I am just really proud of the fact that during his lifetime, Concord was able to achieve our 10% goal, and hopefully that we can move forward and continue that. But strong advocate and defender of affordable housing. And I'm really proud to have been able to work with him and to have experienced his passion for housing. So thank you, Liz.
Yep, so I should just sort of say in case you haven't figured that out right. So Terry passed away recently. His health had been declining over the last year or two. And I think probably passed away like maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now. There was a service for him at First Parish. And yeah, so this is in remembrance of that. So. Yes, Lee.
So it's the first I'm hearing of that, unfortunately. Very sorry to hear that. CHDC certainly appreciates all the efforts and contributions he's made over the years to the affordable housing cause and all the other causes he was involved in. And we extend our condolences to his family.
Yeah. We could sort of say, he was so instrumental in the, what we call the Giroux house, right? The house that's still working through, but making a little bit of progress there. Maybe there's some way we can think about in the housing authority to commemorate him in some way there. Okay, well, that's very nice. Good. Thank you for sharing. Okay, with that, we will move on in the agenda and we'll turn it over to Elizabeth, who will give us an update from the planning board and what's happening on the planning board relative to housing. I think a lot of things are happening on the planning board.
So the planning board's been tackling how they want to move forward with the Thoreau Depot Business District zoning bylaw amendment and the issues, concerns, and comments that were raised. They are going to be talking about that. Not sure if it's going to be probably at the September 13th meeting. I haven't set the agenda with the chair yet. They have been in the past few meetings been looking at the potential to just update the current combined business residence bylaw by pulling in some of the components from the Thoreau Depot business bylaw amendment that deals with the affordable housing section and the open space section. Not surprising, they have already started getting pushback even on that component. But they will have a full discussion on what to do with the Thoreau Depot Business District and basically the 2.5 years of work. I believe there's at least one member who has spoken about just putting the bylaw forth again and trying to make it a special interest item for the first night so that it doesn't get stuck again. The first item on the second night where a couple, 300 and something people got up and left the minute the item was done. So that's going to be a discussion that they will have, but at least trying to move forward with the potential of amending the current combined business residence bylaw, which is in all of the business zone districts except for one limited business district. the one element that I think the planning board is struggling with, and I'm not sure if this group and its members can assist, is they, at town meeting, they received comments from members of the finance committee, and these past few meetings, as the board was trying to think about potentially amending the combined business residence bylaw, is the comments from the FinCom. And I'm gonna paraphrase this because I can send it to Liz when I finish drafting it in the minutes. But it's by amending the zoning bylaw, you're making these properties redevelopment is a higher profit, and it's actually going to increase the cost of the land, which is going to decrease the amount of affordable housing we can get. So by amending the zoning and trying to spur redevelopment, we're actually going to make affordable housing less affordable. So I've reached out to the planners at MAPC, the housing planners, to specifically try and get information on how mixed use zoning and the elements, the financial elements, because if everybody remembers, one of the comments made at town meeting was that the planning board should be doing a complete fiscal analysis of the zoning bylaw amendment and what it's going to do as far as infrastructure costs and traffic costs and school costs and housing costs, and which is fairly impossible to do when you're talking about zoning. Zoning is a framework, and what is going to happen with traffic will depend on what type of use, commercial uses go in there, which is the same right now. You can't do a traffic analysis on zoning. You don't have enough information or the parameters of what a project is. So that's something I think the planning board is really kind of struggling with. If whatever direction they're going to move, I think they are going to specifically reach out to this group and these members to help with getting that message out. That's something that they heard feedback from for the Thoreau Depot was that regardless of the fact they've spent 2.5 years discussing this in public forums, they did not get the message out about the bylaw. And so I think that is something that they will reach out to, whichever direction they move forward, to this group and its members to try and help get that message out for the whatever amendment they move forward with. They are also going to talk about other options to try and everybody's going to get sick of the missing middle housing. What are some of the other things they can do as far as the issue of still seeing the tear downs? There's been a couple of recent articles in APA on looking at different tools. So while it's not something that they would be able to bring forth this town meeting, if it's a new type of zoning regulation, they're interested in a lot of whatever other options are out there that they can have a conversation about. They will also be, as far as the tear down issue, looking again at the current maximum floor area ratio bylaw. It's not a perfect thing. It is actually basically for any large lot that's in residence AA or A, it really doesn't do anything. I mean, you can have a maximum FAR of 10,000 square feet. So so they will be trying to look at another option of taking the floor area ratio, that calculation, out of each different zone district and based on, minimum lot size and trying to look at some type of possibly a sliding scale that deals with lot area and more of the massing component. But that's just going to be a conversation. I don't think they'll have anything ready for town meeting. So that's kind of where they are at right now.
Great. Keith,
Yes.
Thanks. I did have a couple of questions for Elizabeth, and thanks for the update. I'm wondering if the planning board has had a chance to look at the final rules for MBTA communities and that DHCD issued, and in particular, the language that does allow for certain parameters of inclusionary zoning to be incorporated into a multifamily by right district around a commuter rail station.
So they have not looked at the MBTA communities guidelines yet. And the issue with currently with the MBTA communities is right now is an infrastructure issue as far as the wastewater treatment plant and being able to accommodate any large scale development so that how the board goes about trying to develop some type of zoning I think is going to be very challenging, given the fact that you're talking about a magnitude of zoning where the Throw Depot Business District, the macro analysis that MAPC did for any type of potential build out, and it didn't even take into consideration, different setbacks or other items on a site, whether it's snow storage or trash or, different setbacks. And, it was somewhere around 92 units. And even that was something that without some significant push from a community as a whole, even that zoning was not going to make it because of the neighbors. So I mean, the magnitude that the MBTA communities requirement is going to have to hit is, it's going to be huge. And I'm not sure there's any appetite in the community for it. Honestly.
thank you. Sorry. Great. So I think we'll move on. So
So Liz, can I just make one? And
of
I
course.
also think there also needs to be this education and mindset change that there's, and I don't want to say fear, but it's almost a fear of by right uses. Everybody feels that if something is put into the zoning bylaw and it's by right, people are going to miss the opportunity to, have any input or, comments or be able to voice their concerns and issues. And that's a huge hurdle to get over. We're now just kind of seeing the by right, well, it's not by right. The two-family dwelling in residence C is by special permit, and the the board couldn't even put that forward as a by right bylaw. It's special, it's still special permit. Where residence C would be the best place to have it be by right, because the maximum FAR, that's basically, on those smaller lots, that's one of the areas where the max FAR does do its job about making sure the dwellings are compatible with the neighborhood. But I think that's the other, that's the other hurdle, is that if you have something that's by right, everybody feels that means that they won't have any ability to, voice their issues, concerns.
Great.
I mean, and that's just with anything, housing is not just housing, but all of the things we talk about under zoning.
Mhm, mhm. I think Moira has her hand up.
Just a comment, Elizabeth, I think that's a great point. I think fear is the biggest driving force and lack of understanding. And you and Marcia certainly, and Liz are the people with the most information. But I think a one-page flyer, just discounting people, crossing out those fears and explaining to people, this does not mean this, would be extremely helpful for those of us who are trying to explain to people that just because this goes through, it doesn't mean, you're going to have a house in your backyard. You know what I mean? I just think that simplicity nowadays, in the face of all that we are visually attacked with digitally, is a very helpful item. So it's just something I would like to ask you guys to think about.
Thank you. I'm going to move us along if I can. We have a lot of material to cover. And is that okay, Elizabeth? Yep, thank you.
No,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the update. And thank the planning board for sticking with it. They worked hard on that thorough and, you just.
Yeah, so if I could just take one, if I could just get a show of hands, is who would be supportive of just the planning board moving, just putting forth the thorough depot business bylaw amendment as it is once again? I'm not sure the board has the stomach to do it, but it'll be challenging. But thank you.
Okay, well, there's some feedback for you right there. Okay, Maura, do you have something else, or is your hand still up from before? Okay, all right, here we are, moving on. And so this is Marcia is going to spend some time talking about the goals, the draft goals and strategies for the housing production plan. Marcia, thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I think I jumped the gun, so I apologize if I cut Elizabeth off. I'm screen sharing now. I hope people can see the J.M. Goldson ideas for discussion only, the preliminary goals and strategies. First up, what I'd like to do this evening, we're not going to prioritize any of these, but what I'd like to do is just run through them and ask if you believe that, if they're clear, and or if there's something missing. And so that's what I'm looking for. And Liz, I'm going to ask you to look for hands up because I can't see any hands up or anything.
Sure.
So support healthy aging in the community through expanding the range of affordable and intergenerational housing options. Is that a clear goal? Do people understand what that means? Okay, I see a couple of thumbs up for that. Okay. Increase the variety of rental and ownership housing options, particularly near transit stations, sewered areas, and village centers. Is that clear? Okay.
Ed Lerner has his hand up.
Okay.
I have a question. These are not the list you've got out in front of us right now on the screen.
Yes.
Doesn't look the same to me. I'm sorry. I must be not. Go ahead then.
Okay.
The same as what, Lynn? I'm sorry.
That's what she's saying. Number 3, 4, 5, they don't look like the same. I don't know.
Okay. Am I not reading? I'm reading what I'm seeing. So if you're not seeing the same
Okay.
thing,
Go ahead.
okay.
Probably next week.
Okay, Ed, did you have something that you wanted to mention?
No, I was just trying to, put my hand up.
Oh, okay, to say yes, keep this,
Yes.
it's clear.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, gotcha. All right, sorry.
So in order to achieve, the third one is in order to achieve and maintain the state's goal of 10% deed restricted affordable housing, encourage the creation of sufficient affordable rental and ownership housing for households with low incomes, moderate and middle incomes throughout the community.
Mhm.
So is that clear? And
Yes.
okay. Ensure that new development promotes smart growth, protection of natural resources, and climate change adaptation resiliency. All right, I'm going to move on. Provide assistance to stabilize housing and provide services for Concord's most vulnerable residents. All right. Encourage the preservation of existing smaller homes and the construction of new smaller homes, especially as permanently affordable homes for low-income families. Okay.
Mhm.
Foster community outreach and education to develop a diversity, equity, and inclusion mindset about the need for affordable housing throughout the community. All right. Strengthen working partnerships with organizations focused on addressing housing needs in Concord and the region. Continue to, is that clear? Working with our partners. Continue to actively monitor and preserve the long-term affordability of existing affordable units.
Mhm.
And finally, work to fund infrastructure to support new housing development. Now, those are the 10 goals that have been identified. Is there anything missing that people feel should be a goal to be considered?
Stephanie has her hand up.
Yeah, just a quick question about the word infrastructure. Can you describe what you mean by that? I have a feeling I know, but I'm just curious.
When we talk about infrastructure, primarily it's about water and sewer capacity, but it might also include capacity of our schools. It might include capacity of our police and fire to respond to a housing. One of the things that with Concord Muse, which is now called the Prescott, is that there was an impact on our policing and our fire department. And so we were able to get some funding to help support both fire and police. It might also include other services that we might need to think about. So that's what we mean by infrastructure.
Great, thank you. I think that makes sense. I just want to put a plug in for the other services too. I mean, we in the Housing Authority know that the support services that the town provides to our members is critically important. And to the extent we have more or are planning for more vulnerable populations in our town, those resources need to be there for them.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank
That's
you.
a really important point. Moira? You're on mute.
I'm not liking my computer tonight. I'm just wondering if we can add permanently affordable homes for low and moderate families. I just think I'm forever struck when in conversations with people how the middle income people are cannot afford Concord. And I just think we need to think about that as well.
Isn't
I
that
think
like
it's, I
number
think
three?
it's adding, maybe
It's
adding
a
moderate to goal,
rental.
to goal number 6. Is that what really you're saying there?
Yeah. I mean, it might, low income family might get more support from the state and federal, but maybe that's where Concord's focus, I don't know. I just think we have to keep remembering that low income is not, moderate people cannot afford this community anymore. So I think the word should be included as often as possible.
So if I
Just my
might say
opinion.
low and lower income families, would that?
Well, moderate,
Okay.
moderate income families.
All right.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I just want to, this is Stephanie again. There's an overarching theme here, and the theme, I think, is home ownership for all walks of life, all incomes.
Right.
You know, and how does this town support in a whole host of ways and enable making that happen?
I think that's a really good
Right.
point. It needs to be on here somehow. And I think you have to include in your thinking, and I'm not sure how you put it in, ways for older people to stay in their homes or still live in Concord, even if they move into a smaller apartment or something.
So I understand, and we might address this as a DEI issue, because home ownership is a way of creating both family wealth and long-term wealth, and might address our whole goals of equity, inclusion, and diversity. So I think that's a really good point. Thank you.
Thanks.
Are we ready to move on? Because we only have a little bit of time. And can people see this next screen with the planning policies and zoning ideas? I know it's kind of small, I apologize. This is what we get from her. Let me see if I can make it a little bigger.
Good job, Marcia.
Okay, does that help? Can you people see a little better? Okay, so planning, policies, and zoning ideas. And these are strategies. So recall what we just talked about in terms of our goals. We want to consider rezoning the 2-acre lot sized single family zoning to allow 1-acre lot sizes. So that's down what we call down zoning. Research examples of green building design requirements and propose and zoning regulations to require and incentivize green building design. This is speaking to our sustainability and resiliency. Is that a clear strategy?
It is,
Okay.
but I think you've got an extra and in there that makes it
Yeah.
difficult.
I
Yeah.
do too. So we'll.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah.
I've noted that for the wordsmithing.
Thank you. Strengthen the accessory apartment bylaw to allow attached additional dwelling units by right in all districts where they meet minimum criteria, and detached additional dwelling units or ADUs by special permit. I think that's fairly clear. Continue to advocate and study redevelopment at the Thoreau Depot, West Concord, and Crosby Market areas. This is actually, Crosby Market and Thoreau Depot are actually the same thing. So there's going to be a revision here, but it's in our business districts for West Concord and for the Thoreau Depot area around our train stations. Evaluate and change the planned residential development provision to have variable rates of affordability in order to buy down higher priced units when they turn over. This one wasn't clear to me, and so I think we need to work through what it means. Because we do have levels of affordability in the PRD. You have to provide at least the lowest income one if you're going to do one, and then you can do a moderate if you wish to get additional units.
I thought it was impossible to get anybody, a builder, to actually build them because of the current setup that we have now for PBCs.
We've had some success with the PRD. Mill Run, Dan Gainsborough's development over on Main Street is one that used this. So
good.
I think it needs further consideration. Okay. Consider the creation of a town-wide inclusionary zoning bylaw. Other communities have done this, so it requires some research into what other communities have. Identify strategies to enhance diversity, equity, and inclusion in the town's housing planning, policies, and zoning bylaws. That will likely take an outside person to take a look at who is focused on those 3 elements to really look at our zoning to see what we might do. Number 8 is require more strictly that affordable units are designed equitable to market rate units in developments. I think this has always been a goal. It doesn't always happen that way. So we will continue to keep that as a strategy. Rezone to become compliant with MBTA communities law with inclusionary zoning requirements added. And this is, again, West Concord or Thorough Depot areas. And I think Elizabeth identified that there may be challenges because what the MBTA communities is looking for is probably more than what Concord is willing to accept. So that's just put that in the back of your mind. Consider
Marsha, it's Keith. I wonder if there's another way to get at that, and it might be to see how the town can best position itself with partnerships with the Commonwealth to achieve our affordable housing goal, something like that. I think if it would, because I'm hearing a lot of talk about rejection of the MBTA communities law. I think that's the wrong tack to take. I think that there's a lot Concord wants and needs from the state, including if there's a notion of expanding the sewer system for economic development purposes and joining MWRA and all kinds of things. There's all sorts of things that by focusing on achieving our goals in partnership with the Commonwealth might get at that and take the, I think this one should stay in, but I think in addition, we need to look for that way to forge partnerships with the Commonwealth. So thanks.
Okay. So that might be under B or C. So hold on to that thought, please. Moving on, consider a home rule petition to allow the town to require affordable housing in by right subdivision creation or pay them an option fee. This is because the town recently tried to use this tactic. We have it headed in our subdivision rules and regulations. It was challenged by a developer and the select board chose not to pursue it. But if we were to propose it as a home rule petition and have it at the legislative level, perhaps we could add it and other communities could also take advantage of it. So I think that's worthy of keeping in here.
Marcia, the only thing that may not be totally clear is or pay them an option fee.
Okay.
What does that mean?
That was the provision that we had in our subdivision rules and regulations, but maybe that's something we can just reference.
I think it's really the pronoun them needs some clarification there.
Okay, thank you. Consult with a lawyer to review the zoning bylaws from a fair housing DEI perspective and best practice. Okay, that speaks to number 7 as well. Map existing affordable housing project locations and where prioritized future affordable housing opportunities exist. And I think that will be part of an exercise that we will undertake on September 14th. And then strengthen bylaw to allow duplexes by right in all zones with a restriction on overall floor area ratio or FAR and appearance as a single family home or alternatively in certain zones only. So that was that. So what's missing? Is there anything missing that we've touched on this evening?
So I wanted to clarify that there's 3 sections of these goals. One is the planning, policies, and zonings that Marcia's talking about. There's another section coming up of local initiatives and program ideas and the capacity, education, and coordination. So when Marcia's asking for, is there anything missing? It's really specific to planning, policies, and zoning ideas.
Thank you, Liz. Okay, I'm going to move on because I know that we don't have a lot of time and I really appreciate everyone's attention. Okay, our local initiatives and program ideas. Let's see. Okay. One is continue feasibility and analysis to evaluate barriers to creating new units on Concord Housing Authority properties. I think the Housing Authority is continuing to look at this and we will be working with them on that. Designate capital cost funding towards Housing Authority unit construction. That's very clear. Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust and Community Preservation Committee to continue to support and subsidize the creation of subsidized housing inventory units in current and future private developments, including the Assabet River Bluff and Christopher Heights Junction Village projects. All right, the CMAHT.
So my only concern there is that it doesn't allow for the possibility to seek other funds like ARPA or other sources of funds.
Okay. All right. Liz, can you make a note of that? Yeah, we should explore other opportunities for such funding. Okay, CMAT works with the town to identify under what circumstances would the CMAHT fund the acquisition of land or tax title taking for the creation of affordable housing, such as at 2229 Main Street or at 740 Elm Street. 740 Elm Street is the Best Western property that has been on the market several times. And there was some conversation saying, wouldn't that make a great affordable housing site? So that's what that property is. Number 5, explore surplus municipal land with the town to transfer for development as affordable housings, including the Peabody Middle School, which is 112 something Old Marlborough Road, with the Concord, through the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust. And I think that's going to be a conversation that the town will have at large when it comes time, when they finally vacate the Peabody Middle School, complete construction of the new middle school. Strengthen funding for existing small grant program to fund repairs for health and safety purposes. Use unrestricted funds to provide money for maintenance and rehabilitation of existing affordable housing units where it is not eligible under other funding programs. This speaks, Wynn, to your point about helping people to stay in their homes. These small grants have allowed people to retrofit a bathroom or put in a ramp or do other minor repairs to make it possible. So I think we want to continue that and find ways to fund it. Number 7 is strengthen the coordination and integration of available social service programs for low-income residents and seniors, including resources to live independently, basic needs, home care, childcare, health services. Stephanie mentioned this one, and so this is really important. And then number 8, support Concord Housing Development Corporation to create and preserve existing affordable units, which they have done. So
Do we, would it be helpful to add ADA or individuals with disabilities to number 7?
Certainly. Thank you.
Marcia, can I ask you, are the funds to help seniors only available for the existing affordable units, or can any senior on a certain income?
Number 6 applies to anybody who is low income qualified. So
Okay, it's the income, not the unit.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so is there anything missing? Have we, based on what we've talked about this evening? Okay. All right, I'm going to move on then.
Really very comprehensive, Marcia.
We have worked very closely with our consultants, so they've done a great job of capturing everybody's input as we've gone through this, so thank you. So the last one, and we'll try to get through this, is capacity education coordination ideas. So this is probably a lot of outreach and a lot of what we need to be doing in terms of building support for housing in Concord. First, continue to host and support membership in the Regional Housing Services Office. Continue to participate in the West Metro Home Consortium. This has been an invaluable program for the town. Support Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust and the CHDC with designated staff time. Foster outreach and education about local and regional affordable housing needs through a positive public relations campaign. We could probably do better on that one, but we should keep that. Outreach and education about Chapter 40B, the town's subsidized housing status, and the consequences of falling below 10% deed restricted affordable housing. I think Keith has been doing a very good job of this. The town to continue to monitor and plan for subsidized housing inventory units that will expire. Continue to provide funding for the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust at annual town meeting and through the Community Preservation Act and ARPA funds. There they are. Continue participating in the local option for housing affordability coalition to petition the legislature for home rule or other strategies to provide long-term funding for municipal affordable housing trusts. And right now we have the real estate transfer tax and the fee rather, and building permit surcharge, which are on the, hopefully being considered by the legislature.
So Marcia, may I suggest, just to be consistent, that in number 8, you refer to the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust instead of just the municipal. Yeah.
Thank you, Linda. Yeah, I got that.
Okay.
Number 9, evaluate wastewater capacity and allow strategic sewer connections for the creation of denser development and smart growth locations around the village centers and affordable housing developments. And this is actually a more serious issue. I think we understand that it requires understanding where we are with our wastewater management program. And I think there's going to be a more conversation about that issue.
Big issue.
Number 10, prioritize walking and biking infrastructure connections where they would support ongoing or new smart growth housing development. Number 11, continue affirmative outreach to target populations to increase awareness of existing affordable housing programs and assistance at local and state levels. And I think we do that a pretty good job of that, but we could probably do better. Number 12, foster outreach and information about available or prioritized locations for affordable housing and available funding to affordable housing developers. 13, continue the housing roundtable and clarify roles and responsibilities for the housing production plan implementation, including the comprehensive or the Community Preservation Committee. And finally, re-examine using the borrowing powers of the CPA Act to fund a larger affordable housing project. That's something that the CPC has been unwilling to pursue, but I think the conversation needs to continue on that one.
So Marcia, is this this last section where you were suggesting Keith's earlier comment might be incorporated?
Well, he mentioned the ARPA funds, and I think that's included in number 7 to provide.
Well, he was talking about the approach to the cooperatively working with the state.
Yes, this is probably where it needs to go. So Keith, that's where we will put your language.
Thanks very much, because there's just so much the state can do for us if we're pulling in the same direction as they are. Thanks.
So I see Mike has his hand up, and then Lee.
Yeah, just a quick question. You know, the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust also has borrowing capability. Do we want to include that there, or is it focused just on the CPC?
No, I think that could be a separate item, actually, to take advantage of that.
I mean, we've never really addressed it. I mean, as the CPC hasn't sort of tossed it. But, okay.
Right.
Yeah, it would be interesting. It would depend on having that steady revenue stream on which we could bank, a borrowing, but.
Now, I thought Lee was next, and I don't know who the second person is.
Stefan Bader, and then Linda.
Lee?
I was going to make the same point that Mike made about just including the trust for consideration of borrowing. And my other point was, I think this entire plan is potentially limited by the current limitations of our water and sewer infrastructure.
Yeah.
And I know that we're beginning to look at that, but if the conclusion is that we cannot have significant additional development, either in parts or multiple parts of town, none of this can happen. So I feel like that piece of it really needs to be prioritized.
Lee, I think what we need to do is there is the potential for an increased capacity. There are a number of fronts that we're trying to pursue, and that is a conversation that we may need to go to town meeting with in terms of upgrading existing systems, upgrading the wastewater treatment plant. We're currently seeking to increase our NIPD's permit. There's continued outreach and discussion with the Department of Corrections and their wastewater treatment plant. So I think over the next 1 to 4 years, we're going to be really looking at how we increase capacity at our wastewater to have these sewer connections. So I think your point is important, but it's not hopeless.
I see that as, here it is in number 9, and maybe we could work on a stronger verb than evaluate.
Right.
Yeah, I appreciate that the efforts are underway. I think it's important for people to understand, particularly if down the road we're going to be approaching town meeting for funding for increased capacity in whatever form it may take, that's made very clear. And the impacts of not doing that on this housing production plan are communicated effectively.
Very good.
Thank you.
Now you said
Stefan?
Stefan? Okay.
I just wanted to call out that items 4 and 5 also are relatable to what Elizabeth was talking about in her presentation in terms of education and outreach. Number 6, monitor and plan. Is it worth putting in there Fairhaven Gardens? Because as I look into the future, that seems to be the biggest project that would really throw us off, and that we probably need to plan like 10 years ahead for. Get a sinking fund going or something, because that is not in perpetuity as I understand it.
That's correct.
And it may be worth calling that one out, that particular project out. And lastly, on one of the prior screens, if I may take a variation on Keith's comment about the MBTA communities, I think I would probably say, rather than seeking necessarily compliant with the law, some language to the effect of working towards the spirit of the MBTA communities law, so that we're going in the same direction, but not necessarily to the letter that they are set forth as a sort of one size fits all.
That's good.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Linda?
Yes, this may have been in another section and I'm not remembering it, but identifying as a goal in and of itself that we're working to be above the 10%.
Thank you. Yes. Okay. Who else? Is that all our hands raised, people? Were there further questions, comments? Okay. Thank you, everyone, for your attention and participation here.
Well, I just had one other question, comment, and it had to do with the wastewater capacity study. Maybe I'd hate to make it seem like the only reason that we're studying the sewer is for affordable housing, because that's not the case, and I understand that, and that is known, but I think it might be more helpful to see that that if the town is undertaking such a study for economic development, affordable housing, and other purposes, let us hitch our wagon to that star rather than say, oh no, just look at sewer for housing. I think we'd be happier being sold as part of a community building exercise, because it takes a sewer to make a village.
Thank you. And Linda?
Sorry, I already commented.
Okay. All right. So Thank you so much. Liz, I think you captured a lot of that and we've got
I
the
did,
recording.
yes, yeah.
So
And we'll get together with the consultants and make some modifications and work on that together.
thank you, everyone. Good job.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, so very valuable input, right? Okay, so now the remaining portion of our time together, we'll go through updates from the different groups. And so we'll start with the agenda has the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust first, and then we'll go to the other groups. And we'll try to keep it to, maybe 10 minutes per group, something like that, or
So
however long it takes, right?
hopefully it won't take 10 minutes because so much of what we're talking about has been covered by this excellent presentation. Keith Bergman, Chair, Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust. We had two items that we wanted to talk about. One is strategies to stay above 10% under 40B, and the other is trying to reach consensus on affordable housing funding priorities. I'll take the first one out first, which is we've been spending most of the summer with our fellow housing partners talking about raising the alarm of what happens if the town falls below 10% and what can be done to prevent that. And that's why a letter went out from the trust to the select board, a couple of letters to the select board, another one that went out to all town boards with our assessment based on staff input that the Christopher Heights Junction Village is the key for if not staying above 10%, at least getting back above 10%. That's sooner than we could under any other scenario. And you fall below 10% when the community would fall below 10% when the denominator changes. Many communities will fall below when it changes next May of 2023, when the 2020 census figure finally kicks in. And so we have been trying to just make sure that people understand that, and so that no one is surprised if we fall below 10% and there's suddenly an unfriendly 40B proposing a location and density not of the town's choosing. So I appreciate very much all of the effort and support we've had in looking at that issue. And in that context, what we further tried to do is to see if we can reach a consensus on what are the funding priorities for affordable housing dollars in Concord. And I divided up into two categories. One is the money that exists on account right now, which would include the trust's current balance of $1,080,000, which we have on account from prior votes of town meeting. Plus, another source is federal ARPA funds that the Board of Selectmen could, if they chose, vote to expand for affordable housing purposes. A third category or third funding source, which Rich Feely reminded us of, is the Concord Housing Foundation has done some fundraising to help to help with maybe around $50,000. So in looking at the priority uses for those funds, we've said, the trust has said, our top priority is Christopher Heights Junction Village, followed, I'd say a close second, with Assabet River Bluff. Junction Village would produce 83 countable units. Assabet would produce 5. And that's sort of is I think what we're looking at for what we want to advocate for use of funds that are on hand. The other category of funding is that which could be obtained at the next annual town meeting next spring. And that includes the applications that many of the groups on this call will be making to the Community Preservation Committee by their deadline, their application deadline of September 16th. In fact, that's why we're meeting in August and have been having meetings in August so that folks can be ready to submit the applications that would go in. We were delighted. I don't want to, is Carrie on the call?
I think she had to leave.
Still, okay, then I'll relay. We were delighted to hear Carrie's preliminary assessment at our last Municipal Affordable Housing Trust meeting that revenues for the town came in higher than anticipated. And what does that mean? That means more free cash, and that there may be, at least as of last week, and hopefully it'll continue, there may be available funds in free cash for another year's worth of funding for the trust. That would be great. And that was very, very welcome news. Meanwhile, many of our partners on here on the call will be looking to apply for Community Preservation Act funding very soon. We want to be supportive of them, and that's, I think, an update. So thanks.
Thank you, Keith. Any questions? I see Mike wants to.
Just Keith, is it worth mentioning that our support for the Christopher Heights project, in addition to being just general support for the affordable housing project, also has to do with the recent bill that the governor signed with respect to fossil fuel prohibitions for new construction, and the requirement to be able to get those funds that your house portable housing is above the 10%.
Thanks for mentioning that, Mike. In fact, we did focus on that late breaking news, and I think we may want to find expression of that in the goals for the housing production plan that we're talking about too, because it's in the category of what can the state do for us. I thought about that in Marcia's first part of Marcia's presentation, where you're talking about infrastructure and building, and I think making sure that our affordable housing is compliant with these new efforts to improve our clean energy profile. Right. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, and the key there is that while the legislation, the pilot program for a fossil fuel-free demonstration project for no more than 10 communities, supposedly the first 10 to file home rule petitions, which we think were number 5. However, number 11 is the city of Boston. And someone's got to get knocked off the list in order for Mayor Wu to deliver on that. So I think the state is going to be looking at good behavior with affordable housing in order to be part of a program in the long term. So thanks.
I think Linda had a comment.
Yes, on this topic, at the select board meeting on this week on Monday night, we talked about the fact that legal counsel advised the town, and we have submitted a letter to the Mass Energy Department indicating that we feel we meet the criteria as outlined in the new acts, section 179, and we outlined the 3 criteria that we thought we met, and that our interest was to continue with be one of the communities for the pilot program. So that letter has been submitted. In the meantime, the Mass Energy Department has said they are hearing from a number of people and that they expect to issue their regulations prior to July 1, 2023. So a lot can happen between now and when those regulations come down. But the other thing that the select board at least mentioned in passing is that it had been brought out in the report prepared by the town manager's office that there is not congruity between the language in section 179 that we're talking about tonight and the home rule petition that we filed on fossil-free construction going forward. And so among the items that we'll be monitoring and thinking about in the next few months is whether or not we need to generate a new home rule petition where the language is congruent and submit that in time for the next legislative session. So that would mean presenting that at a forthcoming special town meeting, if there is going to be a special town meeting, as a potential option. So there's a lot going on related to all of this and a lot of questions that we just don't have the answers to, but we took an affirmative stance in terms of specifying that we felt we met the criteria as we understood it at this point in time, and that we were interested in going on record again that we hope to be one of the pilot programs.
Well, that's very exciting and good action on the select board and town manager's office for advancing that. It's a great opportunity. You will note that 4 of the RHSO communities are candidates for the pilot program. So, you know, something good's in the water out here. I don't know. So anyway, so that's great. That's great. Okay, thanks for all that update. Very exciting stuff going on there. And then we'll turn it over to Lee for the CHDC update.
Thank you. So Lee Smith, I'm the chair of CHDC. To dovetail on what Keith said just now about Christopher Heights, I've expressed this at a number of public meetings and forums previously, but for the benefit of anyone who hasn't heard, the update on Christopher Heights is that as the result of COVID and other economic factors, the construction costs in this area and nationwide have skyrocketed over the last few years. That's resulted in a significant increase to the construction costs for the project. Along with that, the State Department of Community and Housing Development has basically put a hold on all of the state funding for these projects, including Christopher Heights, stating that they're expecting significant additional municipal contributions for these projects, and they're expecting Christopher Heights as well as other projects across the state to reapply in this fall, in the coming months. So I'm going to be meeting with one of the executives for DHCD on Thursday to get a better explanation of that and better understanding of what their actual expectations are. But long story short, more money needs to be going into the Christopher Heights project, and that's what Keith was referring to and is supporting as what I believe, I like the words he used, as the highest and best use of the trust funds. So in connection with that, we've investigated a sewer connection, which I referred to earlier, which at a minimum from a timing perspective doesn't seem practical, even if it's possible from an engineering perspective. So what we're looking at is an on-site wastewater treatment facility at the project that has a cost in the range of, current estimates are around $1.3 million. So we're expecting that DHCD is going to ask the town to come up with that money, and that could be a combination of trust funds and ARPA funds and any other sources that we might be able to find. So that's where we are with that. If that ultimately is not successful, we suspect that at a minimum, the project will be put on hold indefinitely, if not canceled entirely. It's premature to know which way that's going to go, but that's what CHDC and the select board and the trust and other partners are working towards right now. So we remain positive and optimistic and hope to have your support as we put a proposal forward. In the coming months, we'll be presenting update with the latest and greatest information that we have to the select board in mid-September. I can't remember the date.
19th.
19th. Thank you. And I suspect this issue will come up at the housing production plan meeting as well. But again, part of the political issue, if you will, is that last time, probably 3 years ago at town meeting, it was made clear that no one wanted the developer to come back to the town and ask for any more money. And here we are asking for more money. And you could say it's semantics or nuance, but it's really the state saying the town needs to put up more money. And whether it funnels through the developer or directly to, through another source, we can argue about that, but that's where we are. And certainly at the time of that last town meeting, this was pre-COVID, it was pre-economic downturn and supply chain shortages and everything else, and certainly was not anticipated when those votes were taken. So I'll just ask everyone to maybe just keep an open mind and keep an ear out as we present the latest information as it evolves. So happy to take any questions on that.
I see
All right.
Ed has a question.
Yeah, my hand was,
Okay.
disappearing there. Just to get a handle on the figures that, as I remember, and I may be wrong on this, the initial warrant item was for about $13 million total cost, and now we were talking last time we had a meeting on this at $28 million. Am I right or wrong?
It's 28 million. Yep. When it was first proposed to the town, I think it was 17, and then 4 years ago it was 20. So we went from 20 to 28, where the project went from 20 to 28 and change. 7 of that increase over the 20, they're planning to apply for the state ARPA funds. And then it leaves a gap of 1.3 million, which would be the potential for the town contribution.
I think maybe the 13 was Grantham's portion, and we were coming up with about 4 million or something like that.
The town's putting in 2 million from CPA, $500,000 worth of directed funds from the home consortium, which are sort of the towns to direct, but aren't really in the, they're not taxpayer funds. And that's the town thing. Plus the, if you value the TIF, which is really over time, it's not part of the development cost. I think that's valued at $2 million.
And Lee, is this hold the DHCD's put on, is that going to increase that $28 million?
No, the $28 million was recently bid out to contractors in July. That's a pretty extensive process. So I don't see that that's the number that will go in for the funding request to DHCD.
Okay. Thanks. Sorry to be so detailed.
No, that's fine. But just to be clear, the developer will reapply to DHCD, and I'm sure ask for as much money as is a reasonable request to, hopefully offset any other project costs.
Yes.
And there's also no guarantee that they'll be approved, but go ahead.
Can you give a timeline as to when this project will be dead or alive?
When? I'd say within 6 months, maybe less. But
Okay.
using the word
'Cause
dead.
I was already had a conversation with somebody. I'm sorry, I'm just using that amongst us friends.
Mhm.
I personally have different thoughts about
I
it
mean,
being dead versus on the shelf, but that's just me. if it went that
I
direction.
just want to say that Lee has made two critical comments in this discussion. And one was that it's the state demanding additional support from the municipalities. And two, since I had a hand in drafting the MOU that he referred to, nobody in drafting that had the idea of the COVID impact on construction costs. It was simply just creeping
Oh,
ask
I'm totally,
by the developer. So I think hammering those 2 points home are really critical to helping the citizens understand this problem.
when this person had this conversation with me, I said to them, how much is your house worth now versus what it was worth pre-COVID? And that ended the conversation right there. I just have to let you know that that ended the conversation. And so I think that I think we have to be very realistic with people. And I think we really need to educate them about how important this project is. And again, I'm big on publicity, emergency. Let's really let people know that this is serious. And you know, enough already. I mean, 20, it was 18, and then it was 17, then it was 28, and now we're up to another 10 million. I mean, the longer the red tape and the longer we stall on these issues, the more expensive they become. So I just think we have to be very, very proactive in a nice way. We never use the word deadly, never. You know, I just think we have to explain to people enough. It's time to do something.
I think to your point, more on your question on the timeline, I think that the current plan is that the developer would like to apply for funding, which will come out in this fall. And so that should the town decide to go forward and provide these funds, it would be coming up in the next month or two.
Okay.
But on the other side, if the town refuses to provide additional funding, then it's in serious jeopardy. And just, you know, I think the middle school project is a good example. You know, just the cost increases that we've seen on that project, which have nothing to do with
Right.
affordable housing. You know, we're all feeling that as well. So it's not unique to this project.
Right.
I just want to add, Lee, your great thanks for your leadership and assistance in moving the Assabet River Bluff project forward. We now have an affordable housing site to look forward to further development on, and your efforts were awesome, and really appreciate all that you did to get us over the line. With that, I know I was ready to walk away a couple of times, and I thank you for sticking to it and sticking with it.
I think Lee was probably ready to walk a couple times too.
I bet. A lot of patience.
Thank you all for those comments. It was challenging. It literally took a year. But for those of you who don't know, we closed on it about 2 weeks ago. We've got the open space in the hands of the town, and CHDC owns the 1 acre parcel with 2 existing units with space for 3 more. And CHDC hasn't met since the closing, but we're meeting next week, and we're going to begin to talk about our next steps in terms of planning and to start figuring out what the best configuration and what the project might look like. So we're not going to waste any time on that. But we appreciate everybody's support. It was a wide-ranging effort, very hard work by everyone involved, and we're very appreciative. Thank you.
Great job.
So I just want to clarify, so the CHDC meeting is on the 14th, so it's not next week, but the week after that. So it's just to clarify.
Liz, did I leave anything out?
No, I think that those are good updates. Yeah, but big projects for the small CHDC team that is always recruiting. So if you know anyone interested in affordable housing, actually creating the units and working towards these exciting projects, they could certainly use another person on the board. Yeah, okay, great. Stephanie, where are you? Are you here still?
I'm here.
There you
I'm
are.
here.
Hi, hello, Stephanie. Stephanie's going to report in from the Housing Authority, but also has a lot of things going on.
Thanks, Liz. I will do a quick overview of what's kicking with us, and then I will also defer to my colleagues who are on this call who may be able to offer a bit more detail. So just quickly, our HUD repositioning is fully implemented. We are working through all the operational specifics of that now. We also just a relatively new decision are offering trash pickup for our 18 families who are on project-based vouchers. So that's new. 365 Com Ave, that is also a green light moving forward. We are working with our legal team to draft the management services agreement between us and the between Habitat for Humanity. Other initiatives, I think the two big initiatives that are worth noting here really relate to some complete renovations, relatively big projects for us. The Thoreau Street unit is getting a complete renovation, including a new roof. And our proposals are due back, or the proposals are due back to us within the next few weeks. The other big renovation project are the 3 units at Bedford Street. We received DHCD approval to move forward with those. And that project actually begins, unfortunately, takes a long time, in February of 2023, with slated completion to be December of 2023. So essentially a year from now. So those are our top priorities. If, again, as I mentioned, if there are any other updates or corrections or additions we need to make sure we cover with the group, we've got folks from CHA here to talk it through.
I don't know that I'm seeing any hands. Great. The Housing Foundation, anyone would like to do an update of the Housing Foundation?
Yeah, let me do that.
Hi, Charles.
Charles Phillips. The last I heard from Rich Feely was that on the home rule petitions, or rather the transfer fee, is that the legislature promised to take it up near the beginning of next term.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've been waiting a long time. Who knows? You know, but that's what they say. And maybe with the new governor and who's in favor of it, that might make a difference. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we had allocated $100,000 to the Assabet Ridge project, and we spent $50,000 in the purchase of the property. And Rich was thinking that we could, if the CHDC needed some additional funds to just start out planning that project, we could contribute another $50,000 to that. So just Lee, just take that into consideration.
Thank you first for your contribution towards the purchase. It's greatly appreciated. And thank you again for that offer. I will certainly bring that up at our next board meeting and see if we want to take you up on that.
Any other, Maura, do you have anything else?
No, that was just the use of the 50,000 extra for planning, so you wouldn't be held up in any way.
That's right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I did want to say because all of the funders for the Assabet River Bluff, I think everyone is here, maybe not CPC, But there is a, I don't even know, what do you call it? You know, a congratulation, a time to celebrate event outdoors at the Aspet River Bluff on September 18th. That's Sunday afternoon. And I can give you those details right now. And it's going to be from 3:30 to 5 at 416 Old Marlborough Road. So right next door in the backyard there. So you can all jot that down on your planners, your calendars. And hopefully the excellent weather will continue and it'll be a lovely day outside to continue the good vibes that this project has. I mean, for all the affordable housing projects, this one has pretty good, you know, feelings about it. So a lot of community involvement and partnering together. So so thank you to the foundation for their work, of course, and the trust and the CPC in the town and all that. So I think that might conclude our items for tonight. Linda, did you want to say something? Yes.
Yes. Two things. Always nice to end on good news, right? That's terrific. Related to good news, some of us were at the home dedication for 930 Main Street this past week or past week and a half, and talk about a project that has received a lot of community support. So that's terrific. And Liz, I think you mentioned the 2 units there, you've already applied to DHCT for recognition on the SHI, so that's great. And then the other thing I just want to mention is that there still is an open issue here that I think is critical, and that Keith has been trying to get some definition around as the trust worked with housing partners over the summer, in terms of the application to CPC for housing funds. And so, you know, I do think that's an open question, and if in fact, you know, I think we already know that there are a couple categories of project applications, but perhaps not sufficient to even reach the 10%. So I think that's sort of an open question that I would hope the housing groups could zero in on a little, with a little more detail, to make sure that we're using the best use of those funds this year.
So are you asking?
In terms of applications to CPC?
So you're asking if anyone has plans to submit an application to CPC?
Well, we're already aware of a couple, yes. And
okay.
And you know, are there others maybe that we're not aware of?
I didn't hear any this evening, so I'm curious as to who's planning to submit.
I think CHDC will submit.
For the Aspet River Bluff, is that right?
I'm going to present that to our board, but that would be my recommendation.
And was there another group that was going to submit? Is that what you were referring
Well,
to?
obviously Rizzo, yeah, right? Funding for Rizzo.
Oh, for the
That was
RHSO.
sort of a standing application, I'm assuming.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's still not the, you know, depending on the amount, if DHCD submits, that still is not necessarily reaching the 10% that CPC is obligated to set aside for housing.
What do you know about what that number is? I'm not quite familiar with the. Is it in the? Is it 200,000 kind of thing? Is that what it is, about the 10% ish?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah, 2 to 3, between 2 and
Right.
2, 3. Yeah, I think.
I know that there's been some funding to the Timothy Wheeler House, which to me is a affordable housing, you know, even though it's a private foundation.
Yeah, that's a good point, Ed. They haven't been at the CPC information meetings to indicate their interest, but that doesn't mean they couldn't come forward.
You know? Well, they have the last couple of years, so I have a feeling we still have more to do over there. Anita
The-
might be a good contact on.
If
I
anything,
wasn't
we-
aware that their money came out of the housing bucket.
No,
No, it
doesn't.
wasn't. It was not different, but
Yeah, exactly.
Comes
to
out of
me,
the
it is affordable
historic
housing.
resources,
Excuse me?
historic resources.
Exactly, exactly. It doesn't meet the housing requirement.
Well,
Right.
yeah, we'd rather have more money for housing as well, but I think
Mhm.
noted that we, that we are doing other things. So
Sure.
Okay.
Keith, yeah.
Yeah, maybe to take away from here, and I'm sorry, Carrie's not on, but if Marcia's here, I think it would be an important bit of information is to know what is the dollar amount that for the 10% for affordable housing. What would the available amount be? I also note, I'd hate to limit or to think or have CPC think we're limiting them to that, because historically they've spent 22% of their funds over time on housing. So typically even in this stage of the budget cycle, there's some estimate of what the CPA surcharge is going to raise for the coming fiscal year. I hope so, because if not, then the CPC would be really holding its applications too early, I think. But if that's known, and if we could see what it is, the trust is going to meet again next Thursday, September 8th at 4 o'clock. And I think it would be helpful for us to know, if anyone could get us information by then, if the CHDC knows, has some notion, what's the dollar amount you're going to apply for? Same with the Housing Authority and others. I think it would be helpful for us to, maybe just huddle one last time, add them up and see what it looks like. And if there's some unaccounted for delta that we want to advocate for, I don't know, maybe funds for the trust if the free cash doesn't come through.
I'll try to get those numbers. I wasn't able to attend the CPC meeting earlier. I guess it was just last week. But Ann Clifford is in my office, so I'll see if they have those estimates yet and send them out to Keith and to Lee and to Stephanie for your information. And Liz.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you for bringing that up, Linda. Okay. I think that concludes, and I think if no one has anything else, I think the people who need to do their roll call adjourning can do that. Maybe start with the Housing Authority.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Lee.
Bye-bye.
You ready, Liz?
Yes, ready.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stephanie.
So do we have a motion to adjourn our meeting tonight?
I move we adjourn the meeting of the Housing Roundtable.
Second.
All in favor? Stephanie Krobeck, aye. Charles,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Stefan,
Aye.
and Rick.
Aye.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Keith?
Great. And for the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust, is there a motion to adjourn our meeting?
So moved.
Motion by Mike Lawson. Is there a second?
Second?
Second by Linda Escobedo. Roll call vote on that motion. Linda?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
And Keith? Aye. So that is unanimous vote. Thanks very much.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.